Good morning, everyone. Okay, so we'll start the class. So yesterday we were discussing about this Sar Creek dispute. I told you that this is the area. This is Sar Creek, that is small channel you can see among this Marsi land of Kutch. Okay, and Pakistan says that this green line should be boundary. That means whole Sar Creek area should come under the territory of Pakistan. But India says that this boundary should be demarcated in the middle of the creek. Okay, you can see the red line. The red line is passing through the middle of the creek. So India says it should be that should be the boundary, and this extra area. Okay, this area should be under the occupation of or under the territory of India. That is a dispute that has been ongoing since independence, we can say, and division of country, and has not been solved yet. There has been more than 20 rounds of discussion that has taken place between the government of both the countries, but still no solution has been put forward. Okay, so it is ongoing dispute. In the same reason, one more dispute that was going on in the beginning but now has been solved to a larger extent was your run of Kutch dispute. Okay, so we try to look at the run of Kutch dispute. Okay. So this is your run of Kutch area. Okay, you can see from this diagram here, this is run of Kutch area, small this region. So here this is, and Sar Creek is a part of run of Kutch. Okay, here you can see Sar Creek. So both are in the same region. So here the dispute is because earlier the Pakistani claim that this run of Kutch region is a kind of enclosed sea. Okay, so Pakistan wanted to say the run of Kutch is a example of enclosed sea, and that is why half of the run of Kutch should be come under Pakistan and half of this should be given to India. Okay, so that is the Pakistani's point of view. That since run of Kutch is enclosed sea, half of this should go to Pakistan, half of it should go to India. Okay, as we discussed yesterday, according to Thalweg Doctrine. Thalweg Doctrine governs the division of any water body that is situated on the border of any two countries. And Thalweg Doctrine states that any water body is situated on the border of two countries, it should be the boundary line should pass through the middle of that particular body. Okay, so that is why the Pakistani demarcation should be on this basis. But India said that that is not true. India's position was that run of Kutch is not enclosed sea, it is just a Marsi tract. Okay, so India's position was that run of Kutch is just a Marsi tract, and if you look historically, it has been governed by the Gujarat, okay, Kutch region. It has been governed by the Kutch government, and the Kutch, we can say, has been an integral part of Kutch territory. That is why the whole run of Kutch belongs to India. So these were the two major point of contention, between two countries. But anyway, this matter was referred to this International Court of Justice in 1965. In 1965, if you remember, the war also happened in 1965, and the Pakistani army tried to invade the Run of Kutch area from this side. Okay, so after that war, the matter was referred to International Court of Justice, and there in 1965 they gave a final verdict. So in 1965, ICJ gave a verdict in which 90% of the Run of Kutch area was given to India, while 10% of Run of Kutch area was given to Pakistan. That is about the final verdict, and it was acceptable after some time. Both parties were not agreeing to this verdict, but after a lot of mediation, both of them accepted at this award. So currently, this dispute has been solved to a larger extent, a Space Sar Creek dispute, okay, that we talked about. So that is the overall what you can say situation regarding to the border. Okay, so that is already discussed. We have 4 major border disputes that is going on with Pakistan. Out of this, Run of Kutch has been solved. 3 more is still ongoing. That is your Sar Creek, okay, and your Jammu and Kashmir region, and the Siachen Glacier one. So yeah, so this Jammu and Kashmir region is still ongoing. Run of Kutch has been solved. Sar Creek dispute has been still going, and Siachen dispute is still going. I hope that any this doubt in boundary dispute or is boundary dispute, all the 4 boundary dispute clear to you. Okay, so we talked about all the 4. So if any doubt is there, we can discuss about it again. Okay, otherwise we'll move forward. Okay, so here also one point you should keep in mind, they talk about the border between India and Pakistan. Actually, the whole border can be divided into three different types. First is your international border. So international border that start from your Gujarat. Okay, you can see that starting from this Kutch region of Gujarat like this, and then going via Rajasthan and going via Punjab up to Jammu and Kashmir boundary. Okay, this is the international border, the longest border, that is called as international border or international boundary. So it runs up to here, you can see up to Punjab part. Then after that, the second border is your from here. Okay, that is up to here we have IB, that is international border. Second border start from here, that is called as we discuss LOC, that broadly divides the boundary line in the Jammu and Kashmir region of India. That goes up to yesterday discussed. This grid point is there, NJ9842 near Karakoram Pass. Okay, that is the second part of border. The second part is LOC. And then third part of boundary we discussed, it is not has been demarcated, so still it is ongoing dispute in the area of Siachen Glacier. Okay, so this part of border, so this part of border is not been demarcated, and this is called as AGPL, that is actual ground position line. Okay, actual ground position line means the position that has been occupied by the forces or military of both the countries. Okay, and according to that, the border has been demarcated, accepted for temporary time period. Okay, so AGPL. So three types of border there: international border, that is mostly peaceful, boundary dispute has been mostly settled. LOC, along which a lot of intrusions happen from Pakistani side, or also a lot of ceasefire violations has been happening in recent times. Okay, and proxy wars are being fought on these borders. Okay, Pakistan military and Pakistani government keeps trying to send more and more infiltrators through this border. You already know about this, I think, from news. And then this Siachen Glacier, again, this is dispute does not happen. A dispute is here, but here fighting does not happen. Both the armies are just occupying the glacier area, and here it is also kind of peaceful border. Okay, on this side. So LOC is the most disturbed border in terms of we can say the war-like situation or proxy war-like situation is concerned. So that is all about the India-Pakistan boundary, a brief introduction. Then after that, I talk about the India has boundary with the Myanmar. Okay, India-Myanmar boundary start with from the northeastern state of Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, so it starts from Arunachal Pradesh. Then here we have Nagaland. Okay, then passes through Manipur. Okay, and here we have Mizoram. So total 4 major states are there which shares the border with the Myanmar. Okay, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and Mizoram. This is also the border is demarcated here. It is a mountainous border, hilly border, that is your eastern Himalayas. Okay, so we can say eastern Himalayas, or sometimes also called as Purvanchal Hills. So Purvanchal Hills or eastern Himalaya actually are the mountain system that shares the border between both these countries, like this. Here, if you talk about India-Myanmar border, there is no dispute here. Almost, this is very rough terrain is there. So very rough and difficult terrain is there. Lot of hills and valleys and mountainous region is there. So it is not easily accessible. Earlier time, it used to be used by the insurgents of Northeast. Okay, so insurgents of Northeast, like for example, your NSCN. Okay, you might have heard of NSCN is one organization who demand to be to build a greater Nagaland consisting of areas of state from Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, and part of Myanmar to make a separate country that is called as Great Nagaland. Okay, so such insurgent group used to occupy these border areas and use this for their illegal traffic of weapons or drugs. But nowadays, this both Myanmar army has cracked in this area and have cracked on such operations. So this has become a kind of peaceful border. Okay, and along this line also in this border, in some states, it is permittable that Indian citizens can go up to 15 to 20 kilometers inside the Myanmar without requiring any kind of visa or passport. Okay, that is also a goodwill gesture that has been shown by Myanmar's government, where the citizens are allowed entry into some part of territory Okay, because there are a lot of tribal inhabitants are there. Okay, if you look at this whole region, this whole area is occupied by tribal people, and some tribal people live on this side of the border. Some tribal people, their families, due to their like historical roots, live on this side of border. Okay, that is why to allow them to meet freely without any kind of interaction and hassle, this kind of free movement regime has been established for 15 kilometer inside the Myanmar. Yes, that is all about the Myanmar Indo-Myanmar border. Then some other this project has been has been on annual and been constructed also between India and Myanmar. So these are three major projects that is being constructed. One you can see it is a Sitwe multimodal transport corridor. Okay, Sitwe multimodal transport corridor tries to build a multimodal means all kind of transport. It can be road transport plus railway transport, okay, plus water transport. So when the transportation corridor or any transportation facility is being built within two places, which includes all these kind of these facilities, that is called as multimodal transport corridor. So from here to here in the Sitwe area, they are trying to build up a multimodal transport corridor for easy access to the traders, okay, in this region. Then second is trilateral highway is being built up. Trilateral highway will start from India and pass through Myanmar and goes up to Thailand. Okay, currently the IMT highway, okay, this is also called as IMT highway, which government plans to expand to both Cambodia and Vietnam. Okay, this is your Vietnam. Okay, this is your Cambodia. So currently IMT highway is here. That is highway will be built from Mizoram in India, pass via Myanmar, Mandalay, Yangon, these cities, then go up to Thailand, and then will be expanded to Cambodia and Vietnam, connecting all the 5 countries in the future. Okay, this is very this important project, and if it is done, then it will provide seamless connectivity, okay, to the people from Vietnam to India. It can also be a bridge. It is also considered as a bridge between South Asia and Southeast Asia. Okay, because you know that India is a part of South Asia, while these countries are part of ASEAN group, that is Southeast Asia. So this highway is considered to be a part of or a bridge. Okay, this highway is a bridge between South Asia and Southeast Asia. Then several ICP, that is integrated checkpost, has been developed along the border, where like integrated checkpost, that means hassle-free kind of this access is given to both countries, where you know earlier if you suppose that a checkpost are there, sometimes the checkpost is security reasons, some checkpost is for trading reasons, some checkpost is for general immigration reasons. Okay, so in different checkposts are there, so people have to go through different checkposts and different time they have to show up their certificates or show up their this documents. Okay, but integrated checkpost, it means at one place you have all the facilities, everything will be checked at only one place. So you have to, like for example, if truck is coming, okay, for trading activity, so if different checkposts are there in different place, this truck has to always stop and offload and show their items what they're carrying and documents. So that carries a lot of that will cause a lot of time delay. Okay, but due to integrated checkpost, all this can be done at single place, so time delay can be minimized and much more seamless connectivity, much more easier connectivity, both in economic terms, economic movement as well as human movement can be ensured. Okay, that is also one good development that has been done in the Indo-Myanmar border. Okay, so that is the 3 main borders. Then one, this is again a future project to be considered, that is called as Mekong India Economic Corridor. Okay, you can see from here. So Mekong India Economic Corridor is mostly it focused on boosting the maritime trade between these two countries. Okay, between India and these countries of Southeast Asia. They're trying to build up a corridor by constructing several ports here, there, and then connecting these ports via inland waterway. Okay, if these ports are developed, some port will develop in Thailand, port will develop in the Myanmar, and this port will be connected via this inland waterways. Okay, and from here these ships can move up to Chennai port or can go also up to Haldia port, Kolkata port. So seamless connectivity in the terms of maritime trade can also be established in near futures. Okay, so these are the 4 major development in terms of infrastructure, if we talk about, has been carried out between both the governments of India and Myanmar. Border is mostly peaceful. Okay, there has been very few incidents of any kind of intrusion or attacks from that side. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Then coming to last is India-Sri Lanka boundary. India-Sri Lanka boundary, we know that it is a maritime boundary that is passing via your Pak Strait, you can see. Okay, so small strait is there in the Indian Ocean between two land masses of India and Sri Lanka, which is called as Park Strait. And the boundary is somewhere between, we have this Rameshwaram Island, which is a part of India, and its southernmost point is Dhanuskodi. So Dhanuskodi is here, and as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, there Talai Mannar Island is there. So this two island is where the boundary is situated between. Okay, this is called as Adams Bridge. You must have heard about Adams Bridge, or it's also called as Ram Setu mostly. So this Rameshwaram like this, Talai Mannar like this, and between these small islets are there, small rocky soil and rocks are there, which is also called as Ram Setu. Okay, according to the Indian mythology. So that is the Ram Setu. That is the boundary, and this is called as Park Bay. Okay, this central region is called as Park Bay, through which boundary passes through. Okay, so again, this boundary is also settled, and there has been no dispute in this region, except a few disputes sometimes happen because of fishermen's right. Okay, actually near Dhanuskodi there was this island. Okay, this island is called as Kacha Tivu Island. So this was the only reason for dispute earlier, but later on the government of India actually gave this island to Sri Lanka. Okay, so this island was ceded. The people say that it was ceded, but the government of India contested. Okay, so Kachachivu Island agreement was signed between Indian government and Sri Lanka government, where Indian government agreed to give this right over this island to the Sri Lankan government. Okay, then Tamil Nadu government actually protested this, and then later this matter was referred to Supreme Court of India. Okay, so Tamil Nadu government protested this stance taken by government of India to cede this island to Sri Lanka. So in Supreme Court of India, matter was referred, and Supreme Court say that such ceding without parliamentary approval cannot happen. Okay, the government gave that island to Sri Lanka without taking the parliamentary approval. Okay, so in Supreme Court of India, you might have read about this in polity, this Berubari Union case. Okay, so in Berubari Union case, Supreme Court gave verdict that no part of India can be ceded to any other country without taking the majority, this special majority, approval of a special majority from Parliament of India. Okay, but Indian government contested this decision and said that this decision is not valid in this case because they are not ceding their territory. Okay, they are actually just, this area is disputed area, and just agreement, this meeting has happened between two countries, and according to the agreement, this new boundary line has been demarcated where Kachachivu goes to the Sri Lankan part. Okay, so there is no ceding of territory because this has not been a historical or officially the territory of India. Okay, that is why this case is not valid. So currently, this island is still part of Sri Lanka, and this both fishermen from Sri Lanka as well as fishermen from India actually fish in this region. There is no problem. The problem actually started few years back when LTT was actually a big problem in Sri Lanka. So when LTT was big problem in Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan Navy used to patrol this area very strictly, and that time they used to arrest a lot of fishermen from Tamil Nadu and nearby region who used to go in the fish in the international waters. Okay, so that is how some problems started. Right now, also sometimes the fisherman goes inside the territory of Sri Lanka in search of fishes, and sometimes they are arrested. Sometimes Sri Lankan fishermen are arrested. That is the very minor dispute. We do not have any major dispute with Sri Lanka as of now. The international boundary is clearly demarcated. Yes, I hope that is clear. So that is all about the boundary disputes and some boundary problems which India has with other countries. Okay, overall, you got the brief idea. With more detail about this, you need to study when you talk about either international relations. In that, you need to study more about boundary dispute and the recent whatever dispute is going on with different countries, and especially India's neighbors. Okay, apart from that, in internal security also, from security point of view, you need to read about the boundary dispute, that which boundary poses a most prominent or imminent security challenge to India. Okay, in that case, especially northeastern boundary and the Pakistani boundary, you have to read in detail. Okay, from geography point of view, this is more than enough information. So now we'll come to the second part of our Indian geography. That is physiographic divisions of India. Okay, so the second part will start is the physiographic divisions of India. The physiographic divisions of India, broadly we can divide whole Indian landmass or Indian continent into 5 main regions. Okay, here you can see only 4 is there, but 5 main is there. That is islands of India. So overall, India has been physiographically divided into 5 regions. First, we know that if coming from north to south, the first is Himalayan mountain. You can see this. Okay, this part covering the write me how many states are there that is covered by Himalayas. Okay, this question was asked in prelims 2017. Himalayas cover how many states? Okay, statement was given. Himalaya covers 6 states or 5 states, true or false. Okay, so write me how many states is covered by Himalayas. Okay, so anyway, this is the Himalayan territory. Then second is we have coming south. The second division is Great Plain of North India, just south of Himalayas, starting from the Himalayas, going toward south. Okay, this is your Great Plain. Second reason is Great Plain of India. Okay, so Great Plain of India, you can see one is in the north, and other part of this Great Plain is lies near the coastal regions. You can see from here, this is the eastern coastal plain. It's called as Eastern Coastal Plain, and this is called as Western Coastal Plain. Okay, that is extension of coastal plain. So this is your Great Plain. Then we have Eastern Coastal Plain, and then we have Western Coastal Plains. Okay, so all this is a plain area. That is the second boundary, plain region of India, we can say. And third part of India is Peninsular Plateau. That is also the most oldest. Okay, this part you can see, in triangular part is there like this. Okay, slightly going like this, protruding like here. So this part is oldest and the most stable part. Okay, oldest and most stable part of the India's subcontinent, that is called as Peninsular Plateau. Okay, coastal plains we already discussed. Then we have next is islands of India. Okay, after this we have islands of India. We know that India has 2 islands. One is in the western side, that is Lakshadweep. Other is on the eastern side, that is Andaman and Nicobar Islands. That is how we have divided the whole Indian territory into 5 major regions, 5 major geographic divisions. Okay, starting from North Himalayas, Great Plains of India, Peninsular Plateau, coastal plains, and the islands of India. Okay, now we need to know each of them in much more detail. Okay. So first of all, let's start with the Himalayas. Okay, it is northernmost part. So starting with the Himalayas, the first of all, you need to understand origin and structure of Himalayas. Okay, brief introduction about this we already have discussed when we talked about the plate tectonics, and by the plate tectonics we can actually explain the formation of Himalayas. Okay, so Himalayas, the formation of Himalaya, first of all, we talk about, it happened somewhere between 30 to 10 million years ago. Okay, in the range of 30 to 10 million years ago, that is when the whole Himalaya have formed. Okay, so again to revise this, we already discussed that we know that India earlier was part of Gondwana land here. Okay, so here Gondwana land was here in the south of equator. This is your equator. So India was part of this larger land mass, Gondwana land. Okay, and then India broke from the Gondwana land and started moving in the northward direction. Okay, you can see from here, 70 million years ago it was here, 55 million years ago it was here. So then after that started moving in northward direction. After some time it crossed the equator and finally collided with the Eurasian landmass. Okay, or Eurasian plateau. Okay, this is how India moved, and we can see from diagram here we have Indian plate on this side. This is Eurasian plate. We can say, we know that Eurasian plate is on this side, and due to collision, what happened, all the sediments that are present in the, we discussed about Tethys Sea, if you remember. Okay, that we have Pangaea here, we have Gondwana, sorry, this Laurasia here, that is Angara land, Gondwana land here, and in between that we had a sea that we called as Tethys Sea. So as India started to move toward this Laurasia, that is Eurasian landmass, it start to cross over, start to narrow this Tethys Sea, and gradually due to movement of this Indian plate, all the sediments, okay, all the sediments that were present in the Tethys Sea start to get uplifted or upfolded. Okay, so as you can see, Indian plate going down below the Eurasian plate, and all the sediment present in Tethys Sea start to become upfolded, uplifted. That led to formation of your Himalayan mountain system. You can say this kind of upfolding. Okay, that is why you call Himalaya as a fold mountain. Okay, if I remember, I told you the type of mountain. So Himalaya is example of fold mountain because it has formed by upfolding of sediments. Okay, and this is also sometimes referred as young fold mountain. Young fold mountain because it has formed very recently, okay, in the recent time period. So it is called as young fold mountain. So that is how Himalaya has formed due to collision between Indian plate and Eurasian plate. The sediment present in Tethys Sea become uplifted, leading to formation of different ranges of Himalayas. Why there is so much snow? Snow because height of Himalaya is high. We know that temperature in the atmosphere, if you go higher, what will happen? Temperature will start to decrease. Okay, so whatever rainfall will happen in the form of snow. Okay, that is called as ice line. So due to higher height of Himalayas, it is not any mountain. You go in any mountain after some height, when temperature reaches below 0 degrees Celsius, okay, there will be formation of glaciers. All the rainfall that has happened will start to convert into glacier. Okay, because of continuous deposition of snow. Okay, then overall, if you talk about division of Himalayas, the whole Himalayan system can be divided into 3 different mountain chain. Okay, so first we can call it Trans Himalaya. Trans Himalaya is to the north of Himalayas. Okay, that formed in the first about 35 million years ago. So this was the Himalayas, Trans Himalaya, that formed in the first wave of folding. In the first wave of folding formation of Trans Himalaya, and after that, gradually second time we have about between 30 to 10 million years ago, we have formation of in the second wave, in which we have formation of Himalayas, and third is Purvanchal, we discussed, that is on the eastern side. Okay, so on the eastern side, we have formation of Purvanchal hills. Okay, now I need to discuss each of them one by one. Okay, if you look from diagram here, a Trans Himalaya is this part. Okay, to the south, north of Great Himalayas, mostly located in the Jammu Kashmir region. This part of mountain system is called as Trans Himalaya. Okay, while this part, you can see this part, okay, going up to Arunachal Pradesh. This part is referred as Himalayas. We'll discuss each of them in detail later, so it will be more clear. And this part you can see on the eastern side near Myanmar border, as we discussed, this is called as Purvanchal. Okay, so this is your first, this is your second, and this is your third division of overall Himalayan system. Okay, if you look at your map, you should have, if you have atlas, you can look at the atlas also. Okay, later on it will be more clear. Okay, so first of all, we discuss 3 divisions of Himalayas are there: Trans Himalayas, Himalayas, and Purvanchal. So let's start with Himalayas, and then we'll cover other these two part. So first of all, talking about the Himalayan mountain system. Okay, Himalayan mountain system, again, it is not a single range of mountain. There are 3 main ranges are there in the Himalayas. Okay, if we look like this, then Himalayas has from Jammu Kashmir to Arunachal Pradesh, there are 3 ranges. 3 ranges like this. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so 3 main ranges are there. This first range, northernmost range, is known as Great Himalayas. The middle range, the second range, is known as Himachal. Himachal, or also referred as Lesser Himalayas. So Himachal or Lesser Himalayas, while third range is called as Sivalik or Outer Himalaya. Sivalik or Outer Himalaya. So Himalayas mountain system is made up of 3 ranges: Great Himalayas, Lesser Himalaya or Himachal, and Sivalik or Outer Himalaya. Okay, this is from north to south. Also, it is from oldest to youngest. So Great Himalaya is oldest, Middle Himalaya is, or Himachal is younger, while Sivalik is the youngest mountain system that has formed in very recent time period. Okay, so that is the 3 main ranges in Himalayas. Then Himalaya has, if you talk about in terms of topography, it has a ridge and valley topography. That means the whole Himalayan system is bisected or dissected by a lot of ridges. Okay, these are the ridges. This is called a peak, like this is there. Okay, so this kind of topography is there. So whole Himalayan system is made up of ridge and valley. Okay, so this is your ridge system. That is your ridge, and the depressed part is your valley. Okay, so like this kind of formation is there. We have ridge valley, rich valley. This kind of topography is exhibited by Himalayas. A lot of different ranges are there. Okay, it is not a single chain, but it is bisected and dissected various parts, showing a ridge and valley topography. Okay, this is your ridge and valley topography seen in case of Himalayas. Okay, that is the second point. After that, the third point is regarding the shape of Himalaya. Shape of Himalaya is arcuate. Okay, if you look at the map, you will find it is, if I draw the shape of Himalayas, it is like this. Okay, in India. Okay, in India, the shape of Himalayas will be something like this. Okay, then slightly going up in the Arunachal Pradesh. This is your Jammu and Kashmir state and passing through other state of India. And here we have Arunachal Pradesh. So you can see this arc type shape is there. Okay, it is not a straight line or not a straight mountain. We have arcuate shape is there. The reason behind arcuate shape is because how the collision has happened. Okay, when Indian landmass, okay, or Great Indian landmass collided, its upper part was like this arcuate shape. Okay, this kind of shape is here. So maximum this thrusting has happened on both these two corners. Okay, that is why this part has become depressed while this part has become extended, okay, due to the collision. Okay, it's like two arms. Okay, these two were like two arms of Indian landmass which where collision happened, and due to maximum collision force were experienced in these two arms. That is why here maximum this we can say outward X progression has happened, where the central part become kind of depressed like this. Okay, and here the mountain formed in this part. That is why it has taken a arcuate shape, because maximum push were offered near these 2 points. Maximum push during collision, we can say. Maximum push here and maximum push here during collision. So that is why Himalaya is kind of arcuate in shape. I hope that is clear. After that, we have two main bends. Okay, if you look at the Himalayan mountain system, it is not a straight mountain chain. There are two bends, great bends that is present in the Himalayas. Okay, so these two bends are like this. Okay, overall, start from here. I told you it is first arcuate shape is there, right from Jammu and Kashmir to Arunachal Pradesh. But here, if you look at the topography of Himalayas, just near this Arunachal Pradesh, we have this peak called as Namcha Barwa. Okay, Namcha Barwa peak is there, and here we have this peak called as Nanga Parvat. Okay, in Jammu Kashmir. So from Nanga Parvat in Jammu and Kashmir to Namcha Barwa near Arunachal Pradesh, China, Tibet border, Himalaya is kind of continuous chain of mountain in arc base shape, but near these 2 points, Himalaya is bent. Okay, there is bent in Himalaya that is observed. That is from here, it's suddenly bent in southward direction like this. Okay, so from here, Himalaya is bent in southward direction and extend into the currently, which is the territory of Pakistan. Okay, where two ranges are there. We have Kirthar range, and then we have Suleiman range. So in Pakistan, we have Himalayas that is known by two names, Kirthar range in the north and Suleiman north range in the south. Okay, that is the one bend. This bend, since this is in the western area, this bend is geographically referred as Western Syntaxial Bend. So this bend is called as Western Syntaxial Bend in Himalayas. That is the first bend. Similarly, in the second bend, also near Namcha Barwa, suddenly Himalayas take a southward turn and move like this toward east. Okay, that is called as Eastern Syntaxial Bend. So we have Eastern Syntaxial Bend. Okay, and you'll see this is what we discussed. The third part of Himalaya, this mountain chain is known by locally known by the name of Purvanchal Hills. Okay, this is after bend. This is Purvanchal Hills. Okay, this is referred as Himalayas. Okay, main Himalayas. Then we have Purvanchal Hills, and Purvanchal Hill passes through. We discussed starting from this Arunachal Pradesh border. And then we have Nagaland. Then we have Manipur. Then we have Mizoram. Okay, which here this whole Purvanchal Hills share a border with Myanmar. Some part of this lies in Myanmar. Some part of this lies in Indian territory. Okay, then there is goes like this. Then further it moves in territory of Myanmar like this, where this mountain is known by the name of locally as Arakan Yoma. So it extends to Myanmar after Mizoram, where it is known as Arakan Yoma. Okay, and then further it goes inside the sea. Okay, the extension of this you can see inside the sea, because here we have Bay of Bengal. Okay, so here we have Bay of Bengal. So a large part of this mountain is believed to be submerged below Bay of Bengal, and that has led to formation of your island chain of India that they called as Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Okay, so Andaman and Nicobar Islands are nothing but extension of Himalayas below the sea, and some part of this is slightly above the sea, which has led to formation of this island graph. Okay, that is overall extent of Himalayas if you look from here. Starting from Suleiman range in Pakistan in the east, then Kirthar range, then Himalayas in the central India, then Purvanchal hills, then Arakan Yuma mountains in Myanmar, then Andaman Nicobar, this island kind of island formation in below submerged below sea level, and some part of islands as Andaman and Nicobar island group in the Bay of Bengal region of India. Okay, so this is the how whole topography of Himalayas look like. Okay, so this is also you can see margin. Okay, this line which I have drawn, you can also consider this as a margin how collision has happened. Okay, so this whole Indian landmass was like this, and the collision happened along this whole edge. Okay, between this plate and the Eurasian plate. Okay, so I hope that is clear to you. Okay, overall that is structure, and then we know that Himalayas we discussed 3 regions are there, so we can draw like this. So we have the middle Himalayas, and then we have the outer Himalayas. Okay, so that is this is your great Himalaya, we can say. This is middle Himalayas, and then this outer Himalaya. That is overall structure of Himalayas in Indian subcontinent. Okay, if one more thing you can look at this point, you see, look at this side. Okay, this side talk about the width. Okay, in India, so India you talk about the width of Himalaya. Look here, in western side the width is much more higher. So width in the western side of Himalayas is more, you can see, and here it is much more narrower. In this side, eastern side, if you look, Himalayas are much more narrower. Okay, so width in the western side is more than width in the eastern side. That is also one point you should keep in mind. Okay, so the reason behind this, why we have Himalayas as higher width or more width in the western side as compared to eastern side, the reason is again explained according to how collision has happened. Okay, so Indian plate is like this. So when Indian plate collided with this Eurasian landmass, you can see this is much more protruding out. So first of all, collision happened on the eastern side, and due to this, for example, like suppose land is there. Okay, so collision happened like this, and this point start to become like a hinge. Okay, once Indian landmass collided with Eurasian landmass, this become as a hinge, and then whole Indian mass kind of was rotating around this hinge. Okay, so here this landmass kind of spread it out. Once Himalayas form, this kind of spread it out. Okay, same way how door rotate. Okay, if like this is like a hinge, it strike like this, and then rotation happened along the western side. Okay, that is why the Himalayas spread much more in this western side as compared to the eastern side, and that is why width of Himalaya is more in width western side as compared to the eastern side, because of this rotation of Indian plate that has happened from the point of eastern conflict. Okay, eastern collision. So this kind of collision has led to this kind of topography. Okay, arcuates if you already discussed. Okay, that is overall this brief introduction of Himalayas, how it looks like. Okay, this Nanga Parvat currently is in POK. Okay, so just to have additional information, this is in POK. Okay, this is near the Arunachal Pradesh border. Here also this Indus River, kind of flows like this, and then due to this bend, Indus River start to flow like this. Here also you have like this Brahmaputra flowing like this, and due to this bend, it also start to flow like this. Okay, so both on this side, the rivers is there, Indus River flowing in this side that bends according to this bend, and Brahmaputra River flowing in this side that also bend in this direction due to this syntaxial bend. That is the two important points. Okay, this syntax element is very important question. This question has been asked earlier in examination, that a statement was given, not actually a question was asked, that why Brahmaputra takes a sudden U-turn in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, Brahmaputra river originates from this Kailas range here in Tibet, and it flows like this. Then the question was asked that why before entering India, Brahmaputra takes suddenly a U-turn. Okay, so several options are given. The correct option was because of presence of this bend in the Himalayas. Okay, due to the bend in the Himalayas, Brahmaputra changes its course according to the bend and takes suddenly a U-turn. Okay, that is how topography can be explained. Anyway, further moving ahead, I hope that the diagram is clear to you. Okay, this is very important. If you draw this diagram, if you should draw this diagram is not clearly given in any of the books. Okay, it is very blurred diagram that is in books. So you can draw this simple outline. It will be much more clear to you, okay, for future reference. Northeast wind is reason for what? No, this movement has nothing to do with the river. Okay, wind cannot change the direction of river. Wind has no influence on the river. Okay, so we discussed three main ranges of Himalayas, that is Great Himalaya, Middle Himalaya, Lesser Himalaya, and the Outer Himalaya. Then it has ridge and valley kind of topography, that is arcuate shape. Then it has two main bends, okay, with different parts of Himalayas that we discuss. Okay. And if we draw this like this kind of outline, okay, if you look vertically, then first of all we have Sivalik like this, then we have Lesser Himalaya, and then we have Greater Himalaya. Okay, same diagram but from south to north. Okay, so like this kind of diagram you can draw. Okay, that is how Himalaya is situated from south to north. Okay, Great Himalaya is highest, then we have Middle Himalaya that is lower, and Sivalik is the lowest in height. That is how this whole thing is like that. Okay, so same diagram but with different view. So now coming to the first part, that is our Great Himalayas. Okay, so we know that Himalaya is divided into three parts. Overall brief introduction of Himalaya we discuss. After coming to the second part, that is Great Himalayas. Okay, before that, some more point to talk about the length. Overall, the length of Himalaya is about 2,400 kilometers. Okay, from east to west. Okay, overall length of Himalayas from east to west ranges about 2,400 kilometers. This is Indian length. Okay, not this measuring all this. Okay, so in India we are talking about. In India, overall length of Himalaya is about 2,400 kilometer. Okay, well this side the width is about 500 kilometer, while in this side width is about 100 kilometer. Okay, so 5 times more wide is there. Just additional points. Overall length is 2,400 kilometer. Width difference is Hindu Kush is part of Himalaya. No, Hindu Kush is not part of Himalaya. Okay, that is separate. That is here. Pamir Knot. Okay, that is separate mountain system. Is not in Himalayas. Okay, here we have Pamir Knot. Okay, that is Pamir. What you can call it, the plateau. From there, the Central Asian ranges radiate out. Okay, the Hindu Kush is part of this. Okay, while orogeny is same. Okay, they form the same time, but is not considered as a part of Himalayan mountain system in India. Okay, it is separate Hindu Kush mountain system. Okay, Central Asian mountain system is there. Okay, in China we have different mountain system. Okay, slightly in the northward direction. After this, after this coming to the first part of Himalayas, that is Great Himalayas. 100 kilometer. Okay, about 100 to 150 it varies, but between 100 to 150 kilometer on this side. So starting the Great Himalayas. So Great Himalaya, I told you that is the northernmost part of Himalayas. Okay, like this we can draw from here. It goes like this, passing by Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and major part lies in Nepal, where maximum most of the peaks are there. Okay, like highest peaks of the world are there, then Sikkim, Bhutan, and then goes up to Arunachal Pradesh to Namcha Barwa. Okay, so Namcha Barwa in the east, and Namcha Barwa in the east, and your Nanga Parvat in the west. Okay, that marks the western and eastern boundary of the Great Himalayas. Okay, that is the extent. Namcha Parvat in the east to Nanga Parvat in west in Jammu and Kashmir. That is the boundary of Great Himalayas. Okay. Then coming to some important points about Great Himalayas, average height of Great Himalayas. Okay, average height is about 6,120 kilometers. Okay, that is the maximum height. So 6,120 kilometers, that is average height of Himalayas, and at least it has 40 peaks that is higher than 7,000 kilometers. Okay, so at least 7,000 meter and high peaks are 40 in numbers. If we talk about the Great Himalaya, so it is one of the highest and we can say loftiest mountain range of the world. Okay, then coming to second point is talk about average width of the Himalaya, Great Himalayas. So average width of Great Himalaya is somewhere about 25 kilometers. Okay, it is very narrow, we can say. Okay, it is very narrow because intense collision has happened. That is why most of sediment has been uplifted and this area become very narrower in regions. Okay, so average width is about 25 kilometers. Then third is all the three types of rock, okay, that can be found here. All the three types of rock, that means three types of rocks are there. That is your igneous rock, okay, or it can be metamorphic rock, or it can be sedimentary rock. So all the three type of rock you can find in the Himalayas. Okay. So it is like this. Especially this, all the three rocks is clearly visible. It is not visible in all the part of Himalayas because it's covered by snow throughout the year. But if you go in summertime in Kanchenjunga, okay, so in Kanchenjunga mountain, where is Kanchenjunga mountain system? In which state? Okay, write me which state will find Kanchenjunga mountain system. Okay, so in Kanchenjunga mountain system, you will see all the three rocks. So it's, bottom part of this rock is made up of igneous rock. That is your granite is there. Okay, so the bottom part is made of granitic rock. Middle portion you can clearly see it is a metamorphic rock. Okay, metamorphic rock like this sandstone. While upper part you can see sedimentary rock. Okay, sedimentary rock like limestones. Sikkim, yeah, right, Rahul, Sikkim. So this Kanchenjunga mountain system is in the Kanchenjunga mountain is in the Sikkim state. So the bottom part is made up of granitic rock, the middle part is made up of metamorphic rock, while the upper part is made up of sedimentary rock. So all the three kind of rock you can find in the Great Himalayas. But if you talk about the concentration wise, most of the rock is sedimentary in origin, sedimentary in nature. Okay, so larger part is sedimentary, then metamorphic and igneous. Then next point about Himalaya is it has a symmetrical slope. That means slope, if it build a mountain, this will be symmetrical slope. That means both slope are having same kind of this steepness. Okay, but this is not the case of Great Himalayas. It has asymmetrical slope. That means the Great Himalaya is something look like this. Okay, so this kind of slope is there. That means on the northern side is very steep. Southern side, sorry. So southern slope of this Himalaya is very steep, while northern side is gentle. That is how the slope of Himalaya look like from south, because from south the Indian continent was pushing and was striking the Eurasian landmass. So maximum push was being offered from this south side. So this side upfolding happened to a more severe extent, right? And due to this slope become much more steeper. While on this side, since this is on the opposite side, upfolding did not happen to that extent, and this slope remained gentle. Okay, this kind of topography is there. This is geographically called as hogback topography. Okay, this kind of slope like topography is called as hogback topography, or sometimes also referred as cuesta topography. Okay, cuesta topography. So Himalayas shows hogback topography or cuesta topography, where their southern slope is much more steeper, while northern slope is very gentle in nature. So I hope that is clear. Okay, that is other point regarding Himalayas. Then after this, Extent we already talked about, that extend from Nanga Parvat in the west to Namcha Barwa in the east. Okay, these are some important points regarding Great Himalayas. Okay, this is the highest mountain system of the world overall. Then coming to some important peaks, we know that I told you that more than 40 peaks are there which are more than 7,000 meters high. So some important peaks you can see from here, from highest to lowest. The highest we know that Mount Everest, that lies in Nepal. Okay, it is the highest peak of the world with 8850. It is also considered 8848 meter mostly in the literature. Okay, so that is a disputable point, but Mount Everest is the highest point. Okay, then as far as India is concerned, Kanchenjunga is highest point in the India, that is 8,598 meter in the Great Himalayas. So as far as Great Himalayas is concerned, Kanchenjunga is the highest peak in India, the state of Sikkim that we discussed. 8598. Then we have Lhotse. Then we have Makalu, also in Nepal. This is also in Nepal. This is also in Nepal. Okay, then we have Dhaulagiri. Then Mansalu is in Nepal. Okay, this is in India. Okay, then this is in Tibet. Annapurna in Nepal. Okay, Gosainath in Nepal. Nanda Devi in India. Okay, Kamet in Nepal. Namcha Barwa in India. Okay, Gurla Mandhata in this Nepal region. Trishul in Nepal. Badrinath in India. Okay, so here this is in India. This is in India. This is in India. This is in India. Okay, so you can see out of 15 top peaks according to the according to height, we have 1, okay, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, 5 peaks are there that is only present in Indian territory. Rest 10 is present in the Nepalese territory or some in Tibetan territory. Okay, so that is one important point to keep in mind. Again, here try to remember the 5 top peaks of India. You can clearly see from the atlas it is given there. Okay, so you can remember this. Such type of question can be asked. Again, you do not need to remember the exact height or figures regarding this. They will never ask this figure or exact height, okay, in UPSC. So you should just try to remember the actual order, okay, which is highest, which is lowest, what is the correct order of the different mountain system, different peaks as far as India and the Himalayas are concerned. Okay, so you can get this from NCERT also. This detailed table is given in NCERT. You can find from there. Then coming to some important passes are there. Okay, passes, you might have heard about mountain passes. The mountain pass is nothing but a kind of depression that is present in mountain range. Okay, for example, we have mountain range like this, and so this, when this mountain range is very, we can say high, we cannot cross this mountain. Okay, so sometime what happened in the mountain, there is this kind of pass is there. That means a narrow valley is there, and again we have second mountain range. Okay, so we have one mountain range, second mountain range, and between these two different mountain range we have a valley like feature. Okay, small flatland can be there through which one can cross from this side to that side. Okay, these are called as passes. Okay, so passes are just a simple passageway that allows us to cross between the mountain, okay, across the mountain from one side to the other side. Okay, so a lot of important passes are there that is present in the Great Himalaya that has allowed access to people from south side to the north side or from west side to the eastern side. Okay, so first of all, we talk about important passes in Great Himalayas, starting from the state of Jammu and Kashmir in the west. So in Jammu and Kashmir state, we have two major passes, that is Burjilla Pass and the Jojila Pass. Okay, we can see from diagram here, I think. Yeah. Okay, so in Jammu and Kashmir, we have two passes, important passes. We have Burjilla Pass and the Jojila Pass, you can see. Okay, so here in Great Himalayas, we have the second Jojila Pass. Okay, well, we have one Burjilla Pass that is situated in Jammu and Kashmir region. That was here, somewhere around here, this part. So these are the two important passes in Himalayas in Jammu and Kashmir. This name is important, Burjilla Pass and Jojila Pass. It is present in Great Himalayas in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay. After that, next is we talk about Jojila Pass is actually the pass connects your Kargil. Okay, this pass was very much in news due to this 1990 war that happened. So this pass connects your Kargil in the southern side and Leh on the northern side. Okay, so it connects Kargil to Leh territory. Keep that in mind. It is very high pass, and this as far as the transportation is concerned, this pass is connected by National Highway 1. Okay, so NH1 passes via this pass. Okay, pass of Jojla. Okay, again, this both of these passes are closed during winter season because of heavy landslide and snowfall. Okay, pass is only accessible during summer season. So only accessible during summer season because of excessive snow and landslides. After this, the second pass is situated in Himachal Pradesh. Okay. Himachal Pradesh, we have two important passes, that is Baralachala Pass and Shipkila. This is not Sopki. Okay, this is Shipkila Pass, SHIP. So Himachal Pradesh, we have two major passes, Baralachala Pass and Shipkila Pass. You can see from here, this is, we have Shipkila Pass here, that is between Tibet and Himachal Pradesh. Between Tibet and Himachal Pradesh. And here we have Baralachala Pass inside Himachal Pradesh on the Himalayas. Okay, the Shipkila Pass is very important because your Satluj River, okay, Satluj River, very important rivers of India that originate from Tibet. It actually comes to India via this pass. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is an important fact that Satluj River crosses and come to India via Shipkila Pass, that is between Tibet and Himachal Pradesh. So there are two important passes of Great Himachal Pradesh. Then we have three important passes in Uttarakhand state of Great Himalaya. One is you have Thangta Pass. Here this is not maybe visible to you. This is Niti Pass. Okay, so Thangta Pass. Then we have Niti Pass. Then we have Lipu Lake Pass. So three major passes. These are present in state of Uttarakhand. In the state of Uttarakhand. Okay, out of this, Lipu Lake Pass is very much in news. Recently, it was in news because of a dispute that is going on. I told you yesterday we discussed, that is Pani dispute between India and Nepal. So that is the Lipu Lake Pass is situated in the area of dispute. Okay, the Kali River passes through this, flows near this pass, and this Lipu Lake Pass is also very, very important from point of view of Kailash pilgrimage. Okay, that Indians take. So when the people go on Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, you might have heard of. So for Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, this pass is being used. This pass is used. Okay, so people cross the Himalayas, cross the Uttarakhand, and goes into Tibet. It is example of Tri-Junction Pass actually. Okay, so it is example of Tri-Junction Pass. Tri-Junction Pass means it is situated at the border of three countries. So India is there, Nepal is there, and Tibet is there. Okay, so three countries are there situated at the boundary of this pass. So this is example of Tri-Junction Pass, important from point of view of Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. After that, we have next pass that is present in the eastern Himalayas. So in Nathula Pass is also very, very important, present in the state of Sikkim. So in Sikkim, you can see from diagram here, probably we have Nathula Pass. Okay, you can see Nathula Pass is between Tibet and Sikkim state of India. Nathula Pass is very, very important because earlier this part was also a disputed territory where this Chinese forces and Indian forces kind of were in tension, where they like kind of standoff was there. Okay, but in 2015 situations were 2012. In 2012 situations were normalized, and the trade route opened up between Nathula, between Sikkim and Tibet via Nathula Pass. Okay, since 1962, after war, this pass was closed for any kind of movement. But in 2012, again, due to better relationship that was established between India and China, this pass was allowed to open up both trading activity, and also China allowed this Kailash Mansarovar pilgrimage to use this path to go to this Kailash Parvat for Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. Okay, so that was a kind of goodwill gesture that was established due to betterment of relationship between India and China. But again, in 2016, due to this Doklam issue, okay, that cropped up here, okay, this at the triangle, here Doklam was situated. So due to Doklam issue, Doklam stand up between India and China, again this pass was closed for Kailash Mansarovar pilgrimage. Okay, so again people have to go via this. Okay, where this Lipu Lake. Okay, this is your Lipu Lake. So people have to go via Lipu Lake Pass to Kailash Okay, this pass is very this as far as this Kailash Mansarovar pilgrimage is concerned. Nathula Pass has one very good advantage as compared to this Lipulekh Pass, is that this Lipulekh Pass is very like uneven terrain. Okay, this is wholly mountainous area throughout this whole area. Okay, and it is very difficult to cross this via vehicles. You have to most of the journey you have to take via foot. Okay, a large part of journey if you are taking Lipulekh Pass to go to Kailash Mansarovar, you have to do by foot. So it is not suitable for all kind of person. Only healthy person can take this arduous journey. But advantage that was offered by Nathula Pass is that China has constructed a lot of railways, and this area is kind of flat land. Okay, this region between Nathula to Kailash is a much more flatter land with very good road access. So you can take vehicles and go very near up to Kailash Mansarovar, and then you can take the by foot you can complete the some part of journey. Okay, so it is easily accessible and much more. This pass used to offer a much more comfortable journey. Okay, so more number of pilgrims can go to Kailash Mansarovar if this pass is if China provides access to pilgrims via this pass. Okay, so that is one thing you should keep in mind. Okay, so anyway, that is the Nathula Pass. Okay, that is present in Sikkim. Apart from that, we have also nearby here. Okay, here also this Tri Junction. We have one pass that we discuss called as Jelipla Pass. So other pass near the Sikkim-China border is Jelepla Pass. So Jelepla Pass is also an example of Tri-Junction Pass. Okay. It is also an example of Tri-Junction Pass. It's situated in 3 states. Countries are there: Bhutan in the east, Sikkim in the west, and Tibet in the north. Okay, at this situation near Doklam. Okay, so Jelepla Pass is near Doklam, situated Tri-Junction of Sikkim, Bhutan, and Tibet. Okay, and this pass was used to. This pass was actually a very important trade route between Lhasa region of Tibet and Sikkim region of India. Okay, so this Jelepla Pass was used earlier for trading activity between Lhasa region of Tibet and Sikkim region of India, and then also traders used to go to West Bengal and then come to Bihar also, then go to other part of India also. Okay, this was very very important pass from point of view of economic activity. Okay. So that is the some important passes of Great Himalayas, okay, that we discussed. So total 9 passes are there: Burjila Jujila in the Jammu Kashmir, Baralachala and Sipkila in the Himachal Pradesh, Thangta Pass, Niti Pass and Lipulekh Pass in Uttarakhand. Lipulekh Pass is Tri-Junction Pass. Then Nathla Pass and Jelepla Pass in Sikkim, where Jelepla Pass is also a Tri-Junction Pass. Okay, so keep these things in mind. Here again, the question can be asked in prelims. The possible question can be asked regarding these different passes can be given. And in geography, they generally ask question like arrange them in east to west order. Okay, so suppose that out of these 9 passes, 4 passes will be given, and you will be asked to arrange them that east to west. Okay, as you move from east to west, or it can be as you move from west to east. What will be the correct order of passes that will we encounter? Okay, so that is how you should prepare. Look at the atlas, mark these important passes, and then try to remember which is in the eastern side, which is on the western side. Okay, so a simple is there. If you remember the states, then most of these passes you can guess. Okay, that if you know which state these passes are there, so you know which will be on the western side, which pass will be in the eastern side. Such questions are very very commonly asked. Okay, so that is all about the passes of Great Himalayas. You can see from the diagram here we discuss. So that is all about the Great Himalayas. After Great Himalayas, the second part of Himalayas is your this Lesser Himalayas, or we also call it as a Himachal. Okay, because large part of this Himalaya located in Himachal Pradesh, so it is also called as Himachal. So coming to the Himachal Himalayas, okay, first of all, Middle Lesser Himalaya, you can look at the average height. Average height of Middle Himalaya or Lesser Himalaya is less than the Great Himalaya. For Great Himalaya, it was 6,120 meters. This is only 3,500 to 4,500 meters. If I draw this diagram, I told you before, that is like this. Himalaya is something like this. If you move from south to north, okay, this is your plains of India. Okay, then this will be your Sivalik range. Okay, this is your Middle Himalaya or Lesser Himalaya, and this is your Great Himalaya. On this side, we have Tibetan Plateau. Okay, this side we have Tibet Plateau in the east, and on the other side, on this side, we'll have this Trans Himalayas, okay, in the west. So on this side of Himalaya, you have Trans Himalaya and Tibet. Okay, Trans Himalaya and Tibet. That is overall situation of Himalayas from east to west. Okay, plain will have plateau like this. So average height is between 3,500 to 4,500 meter. This Lesser Himalaya formed somewhere about 25 million years ago. 25 to 20 million years ago. That is when the formation of Middle Himalaya started and completed. Okay. So that is the height. We know that this whole Himalayan range has not been uplifted, and this process of collision has not stopped. I told you in plate tectonics that still India is moving at the rate of 5 centimeter per year. Okay, and is colliding with the Eurasian landmass. Due to this, continuously the Himalayas are rising at a slow rate. Okay, the process of upliftment have not yet stopped. Continuous upliftment is going on, but at the same time, erosion is also happening. So net increase in the height of Himalaya is very, very marginal, very, very less. Okay, because both erosive forces are decreasing the height and convergence forces are increasing the height, but net effect is very, very less. Okay, less than few millimeter height change happens on the yearly or annual basis, but still we should remember that India is still colliding with the Eurasian landmass at this rate. Okay. Anyway, moving forward, the average width of the Middle Himalaya is somewhere between 60 to 80 kilometers. Okay, it is much more wider than the Great Himalayas. Great Himalaya is only 25 kilometer wide, but the Middle or Lesser Himalaya is about 60 to 80 kilometer in the width. Okay, then also it has, we discuss what is hogback topography. Middle Himalaya also has a hogback topography. That means the southern slope is steeper, northern slope is much more gentler. Okay, that is called as hogback topography. After that, the Middle Himalaya, Great Himalaya is kind of continuous range. Okay, it is not broken by different mountain chains. So few passes that discuss is present here. Otherwise, it is overall continuous chain of mountain. But the Middle Himalaya is slightly much more discontinuous as compared to Great Himalaya and can be broadly divided into 5 major ranges. Okay, so 5 major ranges means like one mountain range, second mountain range, third mountain range, okay, fourth mountain range, like this. So overall, the structure of the Middle Himalaya is something like this. Okay, it is divided into 5 different mountain range. Great Himalaya is like this. Okay, that is one single continuous chain of mountain with few valleys here and there only. Okay, so 5 major range is of Middle Himalayas. We have Pir Panjal range in the northernmost side, that is in Jammu and Kashmir. So it starts from Jammu and Kashmir in Pir Panjal. Then we have Dhauladhar range in the Himachal Pradesh. Then we have Mussoorie range and Nag Tiba range. Okay, Mussoorie range is Uttarakhand. Okay. Then we have Nag Tiba range. Nag Tiba range, a part of this lies in Uttarakhand, part of this lies in Nepal. And then we have Mahabharat Lake. Part of this whole lies in the Nepal region. Okay, so this is how the Himalayas, Middle Himalaya, Lesser Himalayas are arranged. Starting from Pir Panjal in the Jammu Kashmir, passing through Dhauladhar, Mussoorie range, Nag Tiba range, then Mahabharat Lake. Okay, that is the 5 ranges. Okay, and this Middle Himalayas, because of this, I told you, it is discontinuous nature is there and much lesser height is there, so it is much more accessible as compared to Great Himalayas. Okay, it's due to low elevation as well as a lot of breaks in the mountain. All of different ranges are there. It is much more accessible, and large part of these ranges are known for resorts. Okay, so in British time, large areas of this Himachal mountains were changed and converted into resort-like areas. For example, you know about Simla. Okay, so Simla is one such resort town. Then we have like Manali is there, okay, for holidaying. So you have Manali is there, Simla is there. Okay, we have Kullu is there. We have Mussoorie itself. Okay, Mussoorie is there. Okay, so all these different hill stations, you can say, okay, resorts and hill stations. So a lot of resorts and hill stations has been developed in the Middle Himalayas, especially during British time, due to favorable weather conditions. Okay, and we know that India had very strong summer season in the Delhi, capital of Delhi of British India. So that is why they made a lot of these resort and hill stations in these Himalayas, so they can have a relief in the summer seasons. Okay, and that is why they used to shift. Most of the British officers and higher officials used to shift in these places in summer season to get relief from the intense summer of India. Yeah, that is overall about Middle Lesser Himalayas. If I draw the diagram, So the range will be something like that. So so here the different ranges will be starting from this Pir Panjal in the north. So here we have Pir Panjal range in this Pir Panjal range. Then we have Dhauladhar range in the Himachal Pradesh. Then we have Mussoorie range in Uttarakhand. Yeah, then we have Nagtiba range, part of this in Uttarakhand, part of this in Nepal. And then we have Mahabharat range or Mahabharat Lake in Nepal. Okay, so these are the 5 ranges of Middle Himalayas. That is your Pir Panjal. We have Dhauladhar, Mussoorie, Nagtiba, and Mahabharat Lake. Okay, here two few other important points. If I tell you, then okay, here, okay, just north of Pir Panjal range here. Okay, here we have the world famous Valley of Kashmir. Okay, so we have here Kashmir Valley situated just north of Pir Panjal range. So Kashmir Valley, this question has been asked that Kashmir Valley is situated between which two ranges? Okay, so in the south it is from the, between Pir Panjal range, and north this is Jaskar range, okay, of Trans Himalayas. So this side it is a Jaskar range. It is known as Jaskar mountain. I'll discuss about this later. So this question was asked that Pir Panjal, this Kashmir is situated in which two mountain ranges? So Kashmir Valley, you can see from this picture, is situated between Jaskar in the north and Pir Panjal in the south. Okay. Similarly here, Mahabharat Lake, and here Great Himalaya is like this. So between Great Himalaya and Mahabharat Lake, we have another famous valley of Nepal, that is Kathmandu Valley. So here we have Kathmandu Valley. So Kathmandu Valley is situated between Mahabharat range of Middle Himalaya and the Great Himalayas. Then we have here in Dhauladhar range, we have two important valleys are there: Kullu Valley and Kangra Valley in Himachal Pradesh. Okay, two main valleys are there here in the Dhauladhar range: Kullu Valley and Kangra Valley. Okay. So Kullu and Kangra Valley, that is another important valleys in this region. Okay. So this is some important point regarding the Middle Himalayas. I hope this is clear. If you look at the atlas, it will be more clear to you. Okay, you can just demarcate. But for drawing example, if in question come in mains, then you can draw this kind of simple diagram and show the different parts. Okay. So let us move forward. That is some important facts we discussed about the Middle Himalaya or Lesser Himalayas. Okay, then important passes we talk about. So generally important passes are present only in Jammu and Kashmir in this Himalayan range. Okay, other places do not have any significant passes. So all these are present in Jammu and Kashmir. We have Pir Panjal Pass, then we have Bidil Pass, we have Golabghar Pass, and we have Banihal Pass. Okay, all of these passes are situated on Pir Panjal range in Jammu and Kashmir region of Middle Himalayas. Yeah. Okay. So that is some important passes to keep in mind. Just remember the names. Try to locate them atlas. Okay. So locate them on atlas. These passes you can easily find in the atlas. or in NCERT is also these passes are given, so you can easily locate them. Pir Panjal Pass is very important. Okay, Pir Panjal and Banihal. Out of these 4 passes, Pir Panjal and Banihal Pass is very important from transportation point of view. Okay, this both passes actually connect the Jammu region to Kashmir region. Jammu to Kashmir. Okay, both of these passes connect Jammu in the south. We discuss in Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu is in the south and Kashmir is in the north. Okay, and this is mountain chain is there. Okay, like Pir Panjal range is like this. So Kashmir, Jammu is in this side, Kashmir is on this side. So via both these 2 passes, either Pir Panjal pass here or the Banihal pass here, the tunnel has been made. Okay, we have one famous tunnel called as Kazigund Tunnel. Okay, that has been named also as Jawaharlal Nehru Tunnel. That is constructed across these passes, and that connects the Jammu region of India to Kashmir region of India. Okay, recently one railway line has also been laid out. Okay, so recently one railway line has been laid out, taking the help of Banihal Pass to connect the Jammu region to Kashmir regions. Okay, so this is very strategic also and very important from both trade, economic, and commerce all point of view. These 2 are most important pass. This Bidil Pass and Golabghar Pass is more on the Pakistani side, which is not in direct use. Okay, because we do not have very strong like trading communication, any kind of this movement communication between India and Pakistan. So Bidil Pass and Golabghar Pass are not much used, but these both passes are inside India. So this is used to travel between Jammu region and Kashmir region. Now that is all about the middle Himalayas. After that, we have the third part of Himalayas, that is the outermost part of Himalayas and also youngest part of Himalayas, that has formed just 10 million years ago. Just 10 million years ago. That is called as Outer Himalaya, Lower Himalaya, or Shivalik Himalaya. So 3 names are given to this kind of Himalaya: Outer Himalaya, Lower Himalaya, and Shivalik Himalaya. Okay, Shivalik Himalaya is also the lowest. Okay, we talk about the height wise, it is the lowest part of Himalayas. You can see from this here, average height of this mountain is only 600 to 1500 meters. It can be taken as somewhere about 900 meters. Okay, so range vary from between 600 to 1500 meters because this is youngest. Still, upliftment has not happened to a severe scale. So it is very smallest. You can say shortest in height, average height within this range. Average width varies from 15 to 50 kilometers. That means I told you in the western side, the Himalaya is much more wide. Okay, in eastern side, it is like this. So due to this, on this side, the average width of Shivalik is 50 kilometers. Okay, so in Jammu Kashmir, start from Jammu and Kashmir. So in Jammu and Kashmir region, okay, it is 50 kilometer width, while in the Arunachal Pradesh, it ends where it is only 50 kilometer in width. Okay, so that is how variation in Shivalik is. So it is 50 kilometer wide in Jammu and Kashmir, while 15 kilometer wide in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, so average width varies from 50 kilometer to 15 kilometer. Overall length we discuss, it is between about 2,400 kilometer in length. Okay, so from Jammu Kashmir to Arunachal Pradesh, it covers the length of about 2,400 kilometers. Okay, and then it has anticline and syncline. Okay, anticline and syncline is geographical term that is used for ridge and valley actually. Okay, so this is your anticline and this valley is a kind of syncline. Again, this mountain is anticline, this valley is a syncline. Okay, again, this mountain is anticline, this valley is syncline. Okay, this kind of topography is called as anticline syncline. Okay, this is anticline, this is your syncline, that is depressed portion. Okay, this depressed downfolded portion is called as syncline, while upfolded higher portion is called as anticline. So it is same like ridge and valley topography or mountain and valley topography. Okay, geographically this anticline and syncline terms is used because there is large number of fold. Okay, that is present in this Shivalik Himalaya. Okay, so it is highly upfolded. This kind of folding is there. That is why we have anticline and syncline feature present in the Himalayas. Then last is the Shivalik is almost continuous in nature except Tista and Ladakh Valley. Okay, I talk about from west to east. There is not a lot of gap between 2 mountain ranges. Okay, only gap that is observed is Tista and Ladakh Valley that is present in Assam. Sorry, Sikkim, not Assam. Okay, so in Sikkim state of India, that is only where the range becomes discontinuous. Otherwise, the Shivalik is overall continuous in nature from Jammu Kashmir to Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, here Sikkim will be somewhere here. So here there is a small discontinuity because of flow of Tista river and Ladakh river. Okay, so both these rivers have eroded through this mountain range, forming a flat land topography. Okay, in between the Shivaliks. Otherwise, everywhere it is a mountainous terrain, continuous mountainous terrain. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is important facts. That is some important points regarding the this gap is about 100 kilometer. Okay, this gap that is present due to Tista and Radak river that flows through the Sivalik, it is 100 kilometer wide. So about 100 kilometer wide plain has formed, kind of plain area has formed, gap area has formed. Otherwise, it is overall continuous throughout its length of 2,400 kilometers. Okay. Then overall, Sivalik can be divided into several important hill ranges. Okay, you can see from here, right from north to south. Okay, so it is not a single mountain range, but it can be divided into several different hill ranges. Okay, so in north, you start from Jammu Hills in the north, that is in Jammu area. Then we have Dudhwa range and Dhang range, okay, in Uttarakhand. Then we have Churia Ghat Hills in Nepal. And then in Sikkim, I told you it is discontinuous, it did not have mountain-like features in Sivalik. The mountain-like feature is present in Great Himalayas only. Okay, and then we have Dafla. This is not about. Okay, is Abor. 4 hill ranges are present in Arunachal Pradesh. Sivalik is divided into 4 major hill ranges in Arunachal Pradesh. It is Dafla, Abor, Miri, and Mishmi hills. Okay, all these hills are named because of tribes. Okay, this is also the name of tribes that inhabit the hilly areas in Arunachal Pradesh. So based on them, these 4 hill ranges are named accordingly. Okay, so from north to south, we have Jammu Hills, west to east actually. Okay, from west to east, we have Jammu Hills, Dudhwa range, Dhang range in Uttarakhand, these two in Uttarakhand, Churia Ghat hills in Nepal, and Dafla, Abor, Miri, and Mishmi hills in the Arunachal Pradesh. These overall compose the Sivalik Himalayas or outer Himalayas in India. Okay, I hope that is clear. Again, if we try to one more thing in Sivalik Himalayas, you can try is mostly 80% of Sivalik Himalayas is, since it is very fresh, this freshly formed, 80% of it is composed of sedimentary rocks. Okay, so 80% of Sivalik Himalaya is made up of sedimentary rock. Okay, because I discussed that sedimentary rock has to change form into metamorphic rock. That takes a lot of time period. That much time has not passed since the formation of Sivalik. So still, most of the sedimentary rock has maintained their original character of sedimentary nature. Okay, but of course, after like millions of years more, like 10-15 million years later, some of the sedimentary rock will transform into metamorphic rock. Okay, then more metamorphic rock can also be found. But right now, major part of this is sedimentary rock that is found in the Sivalik Himalayas. So if we draw the Sivalik Himalayas similarly, okay, so we'll start from here in Jammu here. Okay, so here we have Jammu Hills, then in Uttarakhand we have Dhang range, okay, and Dudhwa range, 2 ranges are there, Dudhwa range and Dhang range. Okay, then we have Churia Ghat Hills in Nepal, okay, like this. Then Sikkim, it is kind of this valley is there due to 2 rivers, and then move to Bhutan here. Then we have Arunachal Pradesh, like this. Okay, so in this area we have 4 major hills like this: Dafla, Abor, Miri, and Mismi hills. Okay, so 4 hills are there: Dafla, Abor, Miri, and Mismi in Arunachal Pradesh. And just above this we have Great Himalayas, like this. Great Himalayas. Great Himalayas, up to we discuss the Namcha Barwa. Okay, like this. So this Dafla or Miri Mismi, that is part of Sivalik, is bound by the north from the Great Himalayan range, and the south of this we have this Assam Valley is there. Okay, so Assam Valley. So that is the location. Here we have Assam Valley. Assam Plain, not valley. Assam is a plain. Okay, so Assam Plain. So in south Assam Plain and north Great Himalayas, that is where Sivalik is bound by. How Sivalik is bound by in the Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, so this is your Jammu Hills. Okay, we have discussed Dhang range, we have Dudhwa range, we have Churia Ghat Hills. Then there is gap in the Sikkim region, the two rivers that is flowing, Tista River and Radak River. And then again from here the mountain character starts, that is Dafla, Abor, Miri and Mismi Hills. Okay, that is how overall arrangement is. Okay, so you can see it is the Sivalik Himalayas. This we discuss is the Middle Himalayas, and the top we can draw, that will be your Great Himalayas like this. This will be your Great Himalaya. That is how Himalayas are arranged in different states of India. So that is all about the Himalayan. These four range are very, very important. Questions are asked, like for example, order based question. So again, same kind of question can be asked. They can give you name of these ranges and ask you to arrange from west to east. Okay, as you move from west to east or as you move from east to west, what will be the correct sequence of these ranges that you will encounter as you move from one side to other sides. Okay, so try to locate them in Atlas and revise them as many times as possible, so it will be in your mind. Okay, instead of writing it and revising, the best way to remember these facts is just look at the atlas and map as many times as possible. Okay, because human brain is able to retain more of pictorial information. If anything you see as a pictorial form or picture form, it will be much more accessible through your subconscious mind. Okay, and will easy for you to remember, recall, okay, whenever is required. So try to look at the atlas as many times as possible. Locate every important these places that I told you or we discuss about. It will be easier in longer term. So that is about Sivalik Himalayas. Then, so important point regarding Sivalik Himalayas is that there is one special kind of formation that we call it as a dune formation or duar formation, that is found between Sivalik Himalayas, and it is part of Sivalik Himalayas, but it is found like this. Sivalik is like this, and then we have Middle Himalaya, that is Himachal. Okay, so between Sivalik and Middle Himalaya, okay, on this side of slope, this valley you can see. Okay, a valley is formed between Middle Himalaya and Sivalik. This valley is referred as dune or duar. Okay, dune in the western Himalayas, western part, and duar in the eastern part. So in western part here mostly Uttarakhand is there. So in Uttarakhand, this valley is referred as Dune Valley. An eastern part, that is in Arunachal Pradesh or Sikkim. Okay, this kind of valley is referred as Duar Valley. Okay, so it's same thing, but in western side Uttarakhand this is called as Dune. In eastern side it is called as Duar. Okay, Dune, you know, the best example of Dune is your Dehradun. Okay, that is a valley between Middle Himalaya and Sivalik. So Dehradun is there. Okay, similarly other dunes are also there. For example, your Pitli Dune. Okay, so Dehradun is there, Pitli Dune is there. Then we have, okay, Kalka Dune is there. Because a lot of dune like this formation has taken place in the different parts of this Sivalik area. We have Udhampur, okay, very, very famous place if you are going on toward Vaishno Devi. Okay, Udhampur is also example of dune located in Jammu and Kashmir region. Okay, so Dehradun, Pitli Dune, Udhampur Dune, okay, Kalka Dune, these are the some dunes that have formed in between Sivalik Himalayas and Himachal Himalayas. That is considered this, but dunes are considered as part of Sivalik. Okay, so this is a special kind of valley that has formed. So we need to understand how and what is the special about this valley, how this valley are actually formed. Okay, how this dune valley are actually formed. Okay, so it is because of this. Okay, let us understand it. Suppose that we know that this all the three ranges of Himalaya that discussed, that is Great Himalaya, Middle Himalaya, and Sivalik. Okay, like this. We know that it does not form in single time, and like single time. It has formed about 30 million years ago. This about 20 million years ago, and this about 10 million years ago. So that means between 10 to 20 million years ago, the configuration of Himalayas would something look like this. That is only two ranges will present. That is Great Himalaya will be there, Middle Himalaya will be there, but Sivalik has not formed yet. 20 million years ago, Sivalik has not formed. So this kind of plain feature is there. Okay, so maybe plain land will be there. So at that time, what would happen? We know that rivers will generate, a lot of rivers are there that are flowing in this region. Suppose that a river is flowing. Okay, so some rivers are originating from Middle Himalayas and flowing in these plain areas like this. Okay, like this. So this will be the flow of river. But what happened after some time? Gradually, the formation of Sivalik will start. Okay, so once after some time what will happen? Okay, this is middle Himalayas. It's a great Himalaya. Okay, so great Himalaya, middle Himalaya. So after some time Sivalik will start to form. So as Sivalik mountain, due to continuous up this collision between Indian plate and Eurasian plate. Okay, so upfolding will start, that will lead to formation of Sivalik. So once Sivalik mountains start to form, okay, after some time what will happen? Its height will keep on rising, and then what will happen? Once this height has risen to a certain extent, this flow of river will be obstructed by the Sivalik mountain, right? This river that is flowing without any obstruction before the formation of Sivalik, its course will be obstructed. Okay, and due to obstruction of the course, by the Sivalik, what will happen? River will start to form a lake-like feature, right? Because river water cannot move any further through this range because of Sivalik barrier. So it start to deposit their water in between this valley between Himachal and Sivalik, and a temporary lake-like feature. Okay, a temporary lake will form. Okay, so temporary lake will form, and due to this, what will happen? You talk about this lake. Suppose this lake has formed like this with water. That lake has formed between Himachal and the Sivalik Himalayas, and since river is coming from this mountain system, what will happen? River is bringing large amount of sediment, right? River is eroding this mountainous region, this peak region, and it will be bringing large amount of sediments. So all this sediment, what will happen? If river is not flowing any longer, all the sediment will start to gradually settle at the bottom of this lake. Okay, so the sediment, the eroded material that river brings, will start to settle at the bottom of the lake. Okay, so this whole bottom of this valley will be accumulated by the sediments. Okay, a very large amount of sediment that has been brought by this rivers flowing from middle Himalayas. Okay, but after some time, this will go on for suppose 1,000 of years. But after 1,000 of years, gradually what will happen? This volume of water will keep on increasing, and more amount of force, okay, more amount of force will be generated or exerted by this river in the Sivalik Himalayas, and due to this, sediments will decrease the height of sea level. Where is sea here? It's not a sea, it's a lake. Okay, that is separate topic. So here what will happen? This lake has formed, then the all sediment will deposit on this side, and due to this, this continuously sea level is this lake level is rising up. Okay, and the river will keep on exerting forces in this mountain system. Okay, and due to this, what will happen? This crack will develop in the Sivaliks. Okay, small weak areas can be there in the Sivalik mountain. The small cracks can develop, and through the small cracks, river can start to erode and start to flow. Okay, so after some time, what will happen? River will again start to flow. Okay. River will again start to flow through Sivalik. So this is like this, and this. Okay, so after some time, through the cracks and gaps in Sivalik, river will start to flow. And once river will start to flow, what will happen? All the lake, the water that is present in lake will be drained out. Okay, river will take its own course. So earlier, suppose that lake was top view you're talking about. Okay, so top view is lake is like this. After some time, lake will drain out, and a small narrow river will start to flow between these two hill ranges. Okay, and this extra area that was earlier covered by the lake water will become dry, but the sediment that is present, okay, sediment that is present in lake bed will remain there. Okay, so this whole area will be covered by the alluvial sediments. You know about alluvial sediment that is brought by the rivers. Okay, so this is what is called as dune. Okay, because it is a valley, so that valley which is on the bed of which valley we have large amount of sediment deposition. Okay, so the valley dunes are such valley. Okay, if you want to write on, you can write on. Dunes are such valley where large amount of sediments are being deposited or has been deposited on its bed by obstruction in the course of river. Okay, that's led to formation of temporary lake. Okay, I hope this process is clear. Okay, it will be very, very fertile in nature, because you know that river bring large amount of sediment that lead to development of alluvial soil. Okay, and these sediments are very, very fertile sediments, so very, very good for agricultural purposes. So agricultural activity. Okay, that is all these valleys support very good agricultural production. Okay, Dehradun, Pitli, Kalgadun, there is very intense agricultural activity that take place, because this is very, very fertile as compared to other valleys in other part of Himalayas. Okay, this is due to this special kind of formation that has happened, okay, in this region. I hope this process clear. Any doubt? Okay, if you have any doubt, we can talk about this again. Okay, but Dune process, how it forms, it should be easy, it should be clear. Okay, the same thing is called as Duar in the Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, okay, in the eastern part. Okay, same way how this valley has formed in the western side, it forms in the eastern side where it is known by Duars. So dunes or duars both are same. Okay. So dune duar formation discussed, that is part of example of Sivalik. Okay, the question can be asked that in which part of Himalayas we see the formation of dunes and duar of land, like landform. Okay, so these are part of Sivalik Himalayas. Okay, keep that in mind. Similarly, we have other thing about Sivalik Himalaya is it talk about it has very dense forest in the eastern side. Okay, we talk about like this. So it has, we have Sivalik here. So on the eastern side, that is in the Nepal side and Uttarakhand side. Okay, in this part there is very thick forested area in Sivalik, while the western side, that is Himachal Pradesh and Jammu side, it's very like we can say less forest is here. Okay, so less forest in the western side of Sivalik, while thick forest in the eastern part of Sivalik. This is because of rainfall pattern. Due to rainfall pattern, we know that the Bay of Bengal branch enter India from the eastern side. Okay, so that is why maximum rainfall happen in the eastern side. That is why forest cover is also thick in the eastern side. While in the western side, the amount of rainfall decreases. That is why forest cover is less. Okay, rainfall and forest cover is directly proportional. Higher the amount of rainfall, higher will be the density of vegetation. That is why in the eastern side receives higher amount of rainfall, forest is thick. In the western side, the rainfall is relatively less, so forest is less dense. Okay. Then one other characteristic that you see in the this Sivalik Himalayas in Himachal Pradesh and some part of Punjab is formation of a landform that is characterized or called as chos. Okay, so chos is a landform. Chos is a landform that is heavily dissected and eroded. Okay, chos is a name given to landform that is heavily dissected and severely eroded, we can say. Heavily dissected and severely eroded. Such kind of landforms are called as chos in the local language. Okay, so heavily dissected and severely eroded landform or land area is called as chos. It is seen in the case of Sivalik Himalayas. Okay, so actually in Punjab, Himachal Pradesh region, suppose that we have Sivalik Himalayas like this. So large number of rivers, actually enter into this Punjab, Himachal Pradesh region from Sivalik Himalayas, and due to this river, they cause very large scale erosion. Okay, so in areas, suppose I talk about this side. Okay, so in this area, due to large scale erosion by this river, this area has become heavily dissected and eroded. Dissected and eroded. Okay, so that is area is called as chos. It is because of numerous streams and rivers that originate from Sivalik and enter into the land mass of Punjab Himalaya that causes very severe erosion, causing formation of chos landform. Okay, so keep these terms in mind: chos landform, dune landform, duar landform. All these are found in Sivalik Himalayas. Okay, all these are part of Sivalik Himalayas. So that is all about the Sivalik Himalayas, I think. So that completes your three part of mountain system of India. That is your Great Himalaya, three part of Himalayas. That is Great Himalayas, Middle Himalaya we discussed, and I talked about the Sivalik Himalayas or Outer Himalayas. Okay, that completes the third, this first part of Himalayas. Okay, overall we discussed about that Himalayas are divided into three main mountain systems. We have Trans Himalaya, Himalaya, and the Eastern Hills or Purvanchal. Okay, and Himalaya is further divided into three main parts. That is Great Himalaya, Middle Himalaya, and Outer Himalaya. Okay, so we talked about Himalayas and all these three divisions of Himalayas. We need to talk more about Trans Himalayas as well as the Eastern Hills or Purvanchal Hills. Okay, so now moving to Sivalik, this next part, that is Purvanchal Hills. Okay, right now if you look from this diagram, we talked about this. Okay, we talked about this Great Himalaya, we talked about Middle Himalayas, we talked about the Outer Himalayas. Now we need to talk about the Purvanchal Hills located in the northeastern part of India. Okay, so Eastern Hills, or also it is known by the name of Purvanchal. Okay, so both names are there. So Eastern Hills or Purvanchal is the name given to the part of Himalayas that is located, found between, we can see, we discussed Namcha Barwa is there. Okay, up to where the great Himalayas terminate in Arunachal Pradesh, and from Namcha Barwa, Himalayas take a bend or southward turn, extending up to Mizoram, okay, in the south, and further it goes up to Myanmar. But in India, between here we have Arunachal Pradesh. So between Arunachal Pradesh, okay, then we have Nagaland, then we have Manipur. Okay, so this is the Himalayas that passes through Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, and Mizoram. This part of Himalaya is called as Eastern Himalayas or Purvanchal Hills. Okay, then different names are given to this hill in different part of the state. For example, in Arunachal Pradesh, this hill is locally referred as Patkai Bom Hills. Okay, the Eastern Hills is referred as Patkai Bom Hills in Arunachal Pradesh. It is referred as Naga Hills in Nagaland. Okay, and it is referred as Manipuri Hills in Manipur, in Nagaland. Okay, and it referred as Mizo Hills in the Mizoram. Okay, it also one other term we used in the Mizoram is sometimes called as Lusai Hills. Okay, so Mizo Hills or Lusai Hills, two names are given to this hills. This is the 4 hills present in 4 different states of India: Patkai Bom in Arunachal Pradesh, Naga Hills in Nagaland, Manipur Hills in Manipur, and Mizo Hills or Lusai Hills in the Mizoram. Okay, Mizoram part of this Eastern Himalayas. Okay, as far as Eastern Himalayas is concerned, it's some important points to talk about. It is generally made up of limestone and sandstone. Okay, that is, this is your sedimentary rock, this is your metamorphic rock. Okay, so large part of Eastern Hill is mostly made up of limestone and sandstone. Average height is less, that is between 2000 to 3000 meter, and height decreases from north to south. Okay, that is, we move from Arunachal Pradesh to Mizoram. So here we have Arunachal Pradesh to Mizoram. Height is higher in Arunachal Pradesh area, and as you move towards south area, its height decreases. Okay, this trend is also important. You should keep in mind how height decreases or changes in Himalaya. Okay, these are 3 important points: made up of limestone and sandstone, average height between 2000 to 3000 meter, and decreases from north to south. Okay, here 2 important peaks are there. The highest point in this Himalaya talk about is present in Nagaland area, which is called as Saramati. Okay, this question has been asked, where is Saramati peak located? Okay, so Saramati peak is there, that is located in Nagaland part of the Himalayas. Okay, in Nagaland, which height is 3826 meters. Okay, so Mount Saramati, it is the highest peak. Okay, it is the highest peak, while one other peak is there that is identified, is present in Mizo Hills, that is called as Blue Mountain. Okay, so apart from Saramati peak, Blue Mountain is another famous peak that is present in the Mizo Hills or Lusai Hills with height of 2157 meters. Okay, so in Eastern Himalaya, these 2 are the important peaks. Otherwise, there is no significant peak here. It is not named, and we discuss it is forms the boundary between India and Myanmar. It is very rugged terrain is there, very difficult terrain is there, not easily accessible. Okay, because of dense forest and this high height of mountain systems. So this is some important fact regarding the Himachal Himalaya. If you try to know more, then okay, like if we draw this Himalaya like this. Okay, so we have Patkai Bom, then we have Naga Hills, then we have Manipur Hills, and then we have Mizo Hills. Okay, so here the connection point you should remember that you draw this accurately. So this is your Naga Hills, and from here one more hill is going in this direction. Like one hill is like east-west orientation is there. This hill range is called as Barail range. Okay, but this range, if you look at the this map or atlas, do not get confused. Okay, Barail range is actually part of peninsular India. Okay, it is not part of Himalayas. And then Barail range, it turns into eastward direction, and here we have three more hill ranges. That is your Garo, Khasi, and Jayantia in Meghalaya. Okay, we'll discuss that when we talk about later. So three hill ranges are there: Garo, Khasi, Jayantia, and Barail range. So this Garo, Khasi, Jayantia hill range is continuous, and it is connected to this Purvanchal hills by this Barail range. Okay, you can see from here, and we have rivers that flow here. So like this. Okay, so overall, here we draw four more hills we discussed. That is part of Sivalik. Okay, if you remember, that is your Dafla, Dafla Hills, Abor Hills, Miri Hills, and Mismi Hills. On this side again we have Great Himalayas like this, that is terminating into Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, so this is your Great Himalayas. Here we discuss the Namcha Barwa. Okay, Namcha Barwa, and from Namcha Barwa this side we have this Patkai Boom. Okay, so that is the order of hills in the eastern Himalayas, okay, or the northeastern India. Okay, Great Himalayas in the northernmost side. Then we have Sivalik. This is part of Sivalik, Dafla, Abor, Miri, and Mismi hills that discuss four hills here. Then we have Garo, Khasi, Jayantia hills in Meghalaya. Okay, in Meghalaya. And then we have Barail range present in between the Assam region. Okay, near Assam region, Nagaland, between Assam and Nagaland. And on this side, it forms a connecting link. Okay, this is very, very important. Barail range is a kind of connecting link between, we can say, Meghalaya Plateau. Meghalaya is a part of Plateau. Meghalaya Plateau and Purvanchal, okay, or Eastern Himalayas. Okay, this question can be asked. So remember that Barail range is a connecting link between Meghalaya Plateau in the west and Purvanchal or Eastern Himalaya in the east. Okay, and this is overall arrangement of mountains in the northeastern India. Okay, all these mountain and hills are very, very important because every year at least one map-based question from hills, rivers, or national parks are generally asked from the northeastern part of India. Okay, because generally the other part of India, mainland part of India, people know the information, but northeastern part is generally neglected. Okay, people do not have a lot of information about geography, history, and not history but geography and the topographical features of this part. So every year one question will see, okay, map-based question. Either it can be about mountains, either it can be about peaks, either it can be about hills. Okay, it can be about rivers. Okay, it can be about national park or biodiversity reserve. One question is without any fail they have been continuously asking. Okay, so prepare all these hill ranges, their orientation. Okay, in which country, in which state, which of the hill ranges are situated, what is their correct order as we move from north to south. Okay, for example, they can give you order of Dafla, Bormiri, or Mismi, or about Patkai Boom, Naga, Manipur, or Mizoram hills. Okay, and ask you to arrange from north to south or west to east. Garo, Khasi, Jayantia. Okay, so when discuss all the part of, this is the part of plateau. So when talk about the Meghalaya plateau, we'll discuss about the nature and how this hills originated. Then it will become more clear. We will cover all the hills of this part. Okay, but for now, that is all about this. Okay, part of this eastern Himalayas. So that is all about the Purvanchal Hill and Eastern Himalayas. We know that Purvanchal Hill then extend to Arakan, Yuma, and Andaman Nicobar in the eastern side, southern side. Then one more nature. This division we are doing from north to south division. Okay, all the division that we discussed before. This is north to south division that discussed the Trans Himalaya. Okay, again I'm revising it. Trans Himalaya. Then we have three main ranges in Himalayas. That is your Great Himalaya, Middle Himalaya, Sivalik. Okay, then we have Eastern Himalaya, that Purvanchal here. Purvanchal here, that is from north to south. Okay, that we discussed. Now, one way of dividing is in Himalaya on the basis of region, that is called also east to west or west to east divisions. Okay, till now we have discussed the Himalayan division on from north to south or on the basis of geomorphology or physiography. But one other basis of dividing Himalaya that was done by Sir Sidney Burrard, okay, who was a British geographer, that he characterized Himalaya in east to western section and divided Himalaya into total 5 parts. Okay, from east to west, he divided Himalaya in 5 parts. First, it is called as Punjab Himalaya. in the westernmost section. Okay, this from east to west, the west from east will be more appropriate. Okay, so this is from west to east division. So Punjab Himalaya, also sometimes referred as Kashmir Himalayas. Okay, so Punjab Himalaya or Kashmir Himalaya. Then after that we have Kumaon Himalaya in Uttarakhand. Then third is Nepal Himalaya, obviously in Nepal. Okay, then fourth we have Sikkim Himalaya in Sikkim, and Arunachal or Assam Himalaya in northeastern India. Okay, so this division of Himalaya from west to east, this regional division has been done on the basis of rivers, on the basis of river courses. What rivers are flowing in where? Okay, so basis of this division is river courses from west to east, Punjab or Kashmir Himalayas, Kumaon Himalayas, Nepal Himalayas, Sikkim Himalaya, or Arunachal and Assam Himalayas. Okay, so if we try to look at this diagram, you can see from the river here. So that part of Himalayas that is situated between Indus River in the west and the Satluj River in the east, okay, is characterized as Punjab or Kashmir Himalaya. Okay, so from Indus in west to Satluj in east, that is part of Punjab or Kashmir Himalaya. Then he said that that part of Himalaya that is situated between Satluj in the west and the Kali River in the east. Okay, so from Satluj in west to Kali River in the east, that is part of Kumaon Himalaya. That mostly it lies in Uttarakhand state of India. Then here one characterization is missing actually. Third was that from Kali, between Kali River and Kosi River. Okay, here we have Kosi River. Say that that part of Himalaya that is between from Kali to Kosi, he characterized it as a Nepal Himalaya. Okay, so between Kali River and Kosi River, this is important. Keep in mind that which part of Himalaya is between which two river systems. So from between Indus and Satluj, we have Punjab or Kashmir Himalayas. Between Satluj and Kali, we have Kumaon Himalayas in Uttarakhand. Between Kali and Kosi, we have Nepal Himalayas lying in mostly in Nepal. Then between Kosi River and Tista River, we have Sikkim Himalayas. Between Kosi River and Tista River, that is, we have Sikkim Himalayas, and between Tista River and Brahmaputra River here. Okay, between Tista and Brahmaputra, this part is called as Assam or sometimes also as Arunachal Himalayas. Okay, so these are the 5 divisions of Himalayas: Punjab, Kumaon, Nepal, Sikkim, and Assam. Okay, which is rivers to discuss: Indus, Satluj, Satluj, Kali. Okay, Kali, Kosi, Kosi, Tista, and Tista and Brahmaputra River. Okay, as we move from west to east. Okay, so in next class we'll discuss details of these different Himalayan ranges. What are the characteristics, or what are some important points regarding these hill ranges? Okay, for now we'll end the class today. If you have any doubt, you can ask. Okay, otherwise we will end the session today. Cold air can also form from cloud. What cold air can also from cloud? Warm air will form the cloud. Okay, cold air will not form the cloud. India, Bangladesh. Oh yeah, we lift that. Okay, next class we discuss. Okay, I think I missed that. Okay, India, Bangladesh. It is peaceful border. There is some dispute there that has been solved in past time. But yes, in next class we'll discuss that. I think I missed that slide. Okay, in next class we'll discuss India, Bangladesh. Yeah, olivorous. Yeah, right. 2 solutions I told you. One is olivorous. Okay, and one is called as olivorous S. Okay, 2 solution has been prepared: olivorous and olivorous S. 2 variants are there. Okay, olivorous S is for high sulfur content. Okay, so those oil which has high sulfur content, olivorous S bacterial solution is used, while for low sulfur content, olivorous solution is used. Okay, this solution actually, bacteria are present in this solution, and these bacteria actually eat the oil, okay, that is spilled in the water or the ocean, and they degrade this oil. Okay, that is how they this decrease the oil pollution in oceanic areas. Okay. Okay, so here in the session, I think you do not have any doubt. So thank you for attending the session. Okay, we'll discuss more in the next class.